Okay. Okay. So first of all, a little information about Wednesday. Some of you are not Wednesday regulars, but if you are, I think I'm going to have to cancel this Wednesday just because it's too close to Rosh Hashanah, and I think I'm going to be crazy. I think it's going to be a little bit nuts at that point. So I'm probably going to have to shut down the operation for this Wednesday, and start up again. Next Wednesday should be fine, and then we'll have another problem down the line. But this month is going to be a little bit crazy. I apologize. It's the uh, it's the month of all the Jewish holidays. They all come kind of clustered together. So there's going to be a bunch of days when I'm offline and unavailable and all of that. Um, but I think that that's going to be cutting it kind of close. I could change my mind, um, but that's my plan for now, is that I'm going to cancel out for Wednesday. So I apologize for that. Okay. So as for us, we are in Psalms chapter 37, and we're in the middle of it. We're in the weeds, and we're on verse 27. Verse 27. So whatever translation you're using, if you're using this one that I recommended, it's on page 182, 183. And any other, you just have to figure it out yourself. Okay, so it starts at Sur Merav Asetov. Turn away from evil and do good. Ushkon Leolam, and you will always live in safety. You will live. So Leolam means literally forever, literally forever. And you'll see that that idea comes up again and again in the next few verses, is this idea of forever. And I was very troubled by it when I was looking at this morning, because how do you promise anybody anything forever? Right? I mean, that's just not possible. Right? We're human beings. Nothing is forever. Right? We are not forever. Our legacy is not forever. You know, we look at the great empires and everything else. And we see that, you know, they're long gone, and their legacy doesn't no longer exists. So this idea that something is le'olam, that something is forever, is very interesting to me, and I think it has to mean something else, because it can't mean forever in the normal way of meaning forever. So one solution, right, is what he came up here. Yushkon le'olam. He says Yushkon, so it's like lebetach, like insecurity, right? You don't have to. You don't. He doesn't have to worry about it. So the person who turns from evil and does good. Now, the order here is really important. The the masters of Musar, the people who kind of look at these texts for ethical development and spiritual development, make a big deal out of the fact that it says Sur Mera va'asetov, turn away from evil and do good. To say that that's the order we should follow, right? When we're talking about, you know, changing ourselves, the first thing is to change bad behavior, and then to adopt the good behavior, right? And we're not going to be able to adopt the good behavior until we change the bad behavior. But other commentators, when they look at this, they say, "Ah, sor me'ra ve'aseh tov." Sor me'ra, that means not doing what God tells, you know, not doing what God tells you not to do, and aseh tov, doing what God tells you to do. Right? It's the commandments, right? The positive commandments and the negative commandments. But I think it's fair to expand it beyond that, and most would expand it beyond that. And to say first you have to turn away from the negative, and then do the positive, and ushkom leolam, and you will live literally forever. So I think I'm just going to offer this, and I'm not sure that I'm not. Don't hold me to it. I think leolam. I think I think the foreverness here is a leaving of lasting good result. we see this elsewhere. You know, where when the Mishnah talks about arguments, and talks about arguments l'shem shamayim, right? It says arguments that are for the sake of heaven, arguments that have an appropriate method and an appropriate purpose. That for the purpose of truth, those arguments endure. Right? They endure. And the question is, what does that mean? They endure, right? Obviously, you don't want an argument to go on and on forever. That would not be right. Right. So one way of understanding it is to say that they have a long-lasting result, a long-lasting positive result. So I think Leolam here, the eternity that's mentioned here, is that you leave behind something which is a lasting, some kind of a lasting legacy. So if you're sur merav asetov, if you avoid evil and you do good in that order, then you are going to be able to, something of you is going to live forever. You're going to be able to leave some sort of positive imprint on the world. I don't know if I buy that. I'm welcome, please, you're welcome to share any ideas you have on that for me, because it's going to come up again and again. That word le'olam, forever, occurs again and again here, and I'm perplexed by it. So feel free to jump in. Ki Adonai ohev mishpat, because God loves justice. And not just that he wants justice, right? He loves justice. Right? This is something that God adores. God adores justice. Lo ya'azov et chasidav. And he says he doesn't abandon his pious ones. Chasid, we have two words here that we have word tzaddik, right, which translates kind of roughly as a righteous person, and here you have the word chasid, which translates is related to the word chesed, means kindness, which is kindness, but chasid also can mean somebody who goes like above and beyond the letter of the law, somebody who's, we have a quote from Irvin Yalom in there. Okay, what does it say here? Kalen shared, I think we ripple, oh, hold on. Oh, hold on, I have to let somebody in. Okay. I think we ripple on into others, just like a stone puts its ripples into the brook. That for me is a source of comfort. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. That for me is a source of comfort. It kind of, in a sense, negates the sense of total oblivion. Some piece of ourselves, not necessarily our consciousness, some piece of ourselves gets passed on and on and on. I think that's a very good point, right? That there's something in us that gets passed on. Obviously, it's not necessarily us in the sense that we think of us, but it's some trace of us, Hold on. Let's see. Remember, do not forget, turn away from evil and do good. Interesting that we have these tandem formulations. To do the other does not infer that one will do the other. A new commitment, a new coming to awareness is needed. I think I think part of it is that, I don't know, I'd have to think about the psychology. I have to think about the psychology of that. I feel like Sur Meirav Asatov, to turn away from evil and to do good. Sur, to turn, is a little bit different than doing, right? Turning is like if you're on a set path and you go off that path. So I sort of think of this as kind of break your habit, right? And kind of break your habitual behavior, and do good, right? The sur meira is sort of like the ra, the bad is kind of what you've gotten used to, right? And you're just going to keep trotting that path, and saying sur, like deviate from the bad so that you can do the good. So I guess there's sort of an awareness that you have to have an awareness that what you've made habitual is is not what you should continue to do, if that makes sense. Right. Well, to turn away requires an act of will, and to do good requires another act of will. Right. So there are definitely two things there are two things going on, although they seem to be kind of like different acts of will. Right. To do good seems to be like a bigger ask, if that makes sense. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay. So he says, Lo Yazav Chasidavi doesn't abandon his pious ones. Leolam Nishmaru says they are protected for all time. Okay, so again, that word Leolam, forever, right? They're protected forever, or literally he keeps them forever. The Zera Rashaim Nichrat. And says, and the descendants and the seed of the wicked are cut off. Right? They don't leave a lasting, any kind of lasting legacy. Tzadikim Yishu Aretz says that the tzadikim, we skipped. Before we had Chasidav, we had the pious, right? We had the people who go above and beyond the letter of the law. The tzaddik is the person who's righteous. So the righteous will inherit the earth. V'yishkanu la'ad aleh says, and they'll dwell there. They'll dwell there again. La'ad, another word for eternal, right? La'ad, eternally. Ki tzaddik yegeh chachma l'shonot daber mishpat. He says because the pious one is actually it's a beautiful verse. It says pi tzaddik, the mouth of a tzaddik, the mouth of a righteous person, yegeh chachma, says reflects on wisdom. Yegeh means literally to meditate on something, to turn something over in your head, to contemplate something. So so the tzaddik, right? The tzaddik, a righteous person meditates on wisdom. And his tongue, right, speaks with justice. It's interesting. The commentators look at this and say, well, there's something very weird about this. Why are you saying Pi tzaddik yegeh chachma? Right? Why are you saying that the mouth of the pious, right, reflects on wisdom? Right? What you should say is just the pious, right? The pious or the righteous reflect on wisdom, right? What's the mouth got to do with it? So I forget which commentator it is. I apologize. And it says that our righteousness begins with our mouth. It begins with what we say. It begins with the stories that begins with the stories that we tell ourselves. It begins with the way that we speak, even to ourselves. Our inner, our inner voice, so to speak, and also the way that we speak, to others, has a huge impact. On our ability to kind of assimilate wisdom. So it is associated with the mouth. It's not purely intellectual, right? It's not purely intellectual. What's purely intellectual rarely gets, and I think that this is a kind of fundamental, I think, in Jewish thought, is that anything that remains purely intellectual rarely gets translated into action or into anything really meaningful. Right? If we just think about stuff, we think about a lot of stuff, right? Think about all the conversations you've had in your head, right, with people that you were going to tell them this and that, and I'm going to, and when I see them next time, I'm going to tell them this, and you never, of course, did, right? It's all floating around in your head. But once you speak it out, right, there's a kind of commitment that comes with that, and so wisdom is very much a thing of the mouth, and not just a thing of the head. That's one way of thinking about it. So ki tzaddik yegeh chachma v'lashonot daber mishpat, Torat Elohav bilibo, and says, and the Torat Elohav bilibo, and in his heart are the teachings of God. It's actually I'm glad that he translated it this way, right? The word Torah, right? The word Torah, right? It doesn't just mean the written text, right? It doesn't just mean the written text of the Torah. It means the teachings of God, right? I mean, teachings of God in their entirety. The word Torah could be used in at least three different ways, right? In one, to refer to the the text of the 5 books of Moses. That's one reason. That's one way of talking about Torah. Torah can be a way. It can be a way of describing the entirety of the corpus of Jewish learning, right? All the books, right? So I could take you into our library and say, this is all Torah, all of it, right? I could do that. And then there's this third usage, right? Where Torah is not just, where for example, the scripture refers to Torah Timecha, the teachings of your mother. Well, it's not referring to the book, right? It's not necessarily referring to the book. It's referring to the things which are taught. So here, it's the teachings of God. The teachings of God are in his heart, right? Which means that they're not just in his, right? They're not just in his head, right? They're not just in the head, or not just on the mouth. That he's able to that he or she is able to say them and to repeat them, and like a like a parrot, but that it's inside of your heart. And the heart, of course, is it's not just your emotional center. It's also your intellectual center. But more than that, whenever you see the word heart in Hebrew, lev, it means the center of something. It means the heart of something, the way we think of as the center of your being. So this is at the very center of the being. Says, and his feet don't stumble. So because you've internalized this Torah, you've internalized this teaching, right? That has an effect on even the lowest part of your body, right? This is the feet stumbling, right? This is about as basic as it gets, right? This is about as basic as it gets, like when you take a field sobriety test, right? What do they test? They test whether or not you can walk. Right? This is basic. So it will, right? So it will influence, right, from the heart. It influences all the way down to the feet. It influences all the way down so that they don't stumble. Tzofir, Rashal, Tzaddik. The wicked watches the wicked. And now we're back to the wicked. Okay, you're probably wondering what happened to it, because remember this psalm is going back and forth between the good person and between the tzaddik and the rasha, between the righteous person and the wicked person. Now the wicked person, in case you were wondering what happened to them, it says Tzofei Rasha Tzaddik. It says the wicked watches for the righteous person. He says, and pursues his death. He watches out to kill him. He says, Adonai lo ya'azen biyado v'lo yashe'enu b'hishafto. He says, but God will not leave him as a victim. He's not going to literally leave him to his hand. God is not going to give over the tzaddik into the hand of the wicked, and so that he could be falsely convicted and then tried, and says that that's not going to happen. Kavel Hashem. He says, put your hope in God. As I said many times, this word kaveh, it's not just, it doesn't just mean hope. It doesn't just mean wait. It's related to the Arabic taqwa. So it means to have a constant attention. So kaveh Hashem, trust in Hashem, put your hope in Hashem, wait for Hashem, and have your total awareness on God, ushmor darcho, okay, and keep shmor darcho, and keep his path, right, and keep his path. That image is used throughout, when it comes to stumbling, right? This idea of the path, right? So keep to his path. Ramimcha says the Reshed Aretz, and he will raise you to, he will literally raise you. He'll raise you up to the inheritance of to the possession of the earth. Tikaret Rishayim Tireh. It says to see the wicked destroyed. Right? So you will, it's an interesting image. It says take you up. He's gonna give you a bird's eye view of the world. He's gonna give you a bird's eye view of the world, and you're going to see, that the wicked, that the wicked are destroyed. And now he starts talking. Now all of a sudden he changes he changes person, and he starts talking personally. And he says, Ra'iti Rasha, says Arit. This says Arit. He says, I saw a wicked one with great power. It's a very interesting expression. Umitare ke'ezra ranan. He says he put down, I'm not sure exactly, I'm not sure where that's a word I don't know. Mitaret ke'ezrach ranan. Like a mighty person, like some sort of mighty person, he struck down his roots. I feel like there's a lot of mixed metaphors in this particular verse. He's stuck down his roots. He's like a giant tree, and he plants himself. Right? He plants himself as a powerful person, but then says Yavor Pineinenu. Says he vanished and he was gone. I think about this. I think about this now. You look at the news. You look at the news. You look at celebrities. And one day, like, they're the most amazing things, and everybody thinks they're awesome and great, and and everybody's talking about them, and then they do something horrible, like, P. Diddy or one of these guys, right? And they do something horrible, and then they're just gone. Like nobody, there'll come a point where nobody cares anymore. Nobody will remember who this person is, right? Or they'll be in, such total disgrace. He says, so I looked. It says I looked for him, I couldn't find him. So kind of a nice, it's like they're gone. But this person who was so important, they struck down their roots, right? And they were so strong and they were so powerful, and they're right, they're gone, right? They've disappeared. It says Shemar Tam. He says, keep simplicity, right? Shemar Tam. Or it says Ore Yashar, right? And look at the person who's upright, right? These two words, Tam, simple, wholehearted, Yashar, right? Somebody who has Shar literally means straight, right? Strength, integrity. So all these things, this thing of, making yourself big and planting down your roots and trying to make yourself into some big thing. He says no. He says, Shemartam Ureyashar. Ki achrit the Ishalom. It says it is the man of peace who has a future. It's actually interesting. Ki achrit the Ishalom. He says the end, the achrit, right? The end is for the person, is for the man of peace. Right. Ultimately, the man of peace is the one who is the one who wins out. Even though when you look at the world and it looks like all the bullies, right? All the bullies are doing great, right? All the bullies are doing great. They're planting down their roots, and they're shouting and screaming. It says no, that's not the people. That's not the people who are gonna have the lasting legacy. It's going to be the people who are Shemartam, the people who keep to simplicity and wholeheartedness, to the people who value Yashrut, Yashar, to have integrity and to be straight, people are straight. and the people who are ish shalom, people who are people of peace, people of peace. Uposhim, it says, Uposhim nishmadu yahdav. And the sinners will be wiped out together. Achrit Rashaim Nichrata. He uses the same word, achrit, at the end. And in the end, it says the end of the wicked is destruction. So it says at the end, what's the end game? Right? If we sort of look at how things are going to work out, the way things are going to work out is that the Ish Shalom is going to have his peace. The person of peace is going to have their peace in the end, and the wicked person is going to be cut off at the end. Right? There's going to be no room for them, right? If there's shalom, there's no room for such people, right? There's no room for the wicked in a world of peace. They live off of anger and conflict and hatred and all of those things. And once those are gone, they're literally cut off. There's nothing to give them sustenance in this world, right? There's nothing for them here. So we'll look for them, and they'll just be gone, finished. It says to Shu'at Tzadikim Adonai Ma'uzah Be'etzara. He says, and the salvation of the righteous comes from God, and his Ma'uzah Be'etzara, he is their fortress. He is their fortress. He's their literally just sort of their strength at the time of trouble. Right? Remember the word Sarah for you Hebrew fans, right? Sarah means that literally the narrow place, right? Trouble, right? For those of you who know Yiddish, right? We say tsoros, right? What Sarah means is that feeling of being stuck, right? Like you just can't you can't get out of it, right? You're messed up if you go this way, you're messed up if you go that way, you're trapped, right? That feeling of being trapped. It says Hashem is going to be at the time of your trouble. He's going to be your strength to be able to get out of that. Linda asks a very good question. Does the expression "man of peace" differ in meaning in the psalm from how we use it today? That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, it is a beautiful expression, and I don't think. Well, okay. So let's put it this way. I think the bigger question is whether the word shalom is used in the same way that we use it today. I remember when I was in Hebrew school, when I was in Hebrew school, the Israeli Hebrew teachers used to say, Shalom means hello, goodbye, and peace, right? Hello, goodbye, and peace, right? So I used to ask my students, like when they would, I say, my students, what do you think the word shalom means? Because I did a unit on violence. I said, what do you think it means? And they'd say, well, shalom means hello, goodbye, and peace. I said, okay. So first of all, that's your first mistake. It means peace, peace, and peace. Okay, meaning so that we use peace as a greeting, but it doesn't change its meaning as peace. It doesn't become, there's not hello, right? Hello, just by the way, it means just hail, right? Hail, hey, I'm coming, I'm not going to kill you. Okay, just be aware, I'm here, I'm not going to kill you. That's different from saying shalom, to wish somebody peace. We actually, we say that, it's a wish of peace. It's or you're asking for somebody's peace, right? In Hebrew, when you want to ask how somebody is, you say, Ma shalomcha, how is your peace? Obviously, that's a different meaning of the word peace, right? So I think the question here is like, what does peace mean? Peace means here a much bigger concept. We use peace to mean the absence of violence, the absence of active violence. That's what we mean peace, right? And that's not how peace is used here. Peace here is the word shalom related to the word shalem, which means wholeness. When I'm asking you, ma shalomcha, right? How is your peace? What I'm asking you is, are all the pieces of your life fitting together, right? Is everything, are you a whole person? Is everything kind of fitting together as it's supposed to fit together? Are you right? Are you right with the world? Right. So an ish shalom is a person who is who is whole within himself and whole with the world, whole with themselves. I have to get rid of this sexist language. I'm just horrible. So whole with themselves and whole with the world. So so I guess just to answer your question, probably not, right? Because we each time we think, oh, a person of peace, right? A person who's, sort of pacifistic and not likely, to punch anybody in the nose. But I think this is a much deeper concept.
I mean, I'm glad you brought up the idea of peace as being an absence of violence in the way we understand it today, because this brings us back to the tandem of expressions we were discussing before. The absence of violence does not yet mean the presence of justice or the presence of inner balance or the presence of concord,
Yes. Well, yes. A ceasefire is basically a sur meira without the aseh tov, right? It's desisting from the bad without doing the good, right? I mean, so that's that's something to think about, right? That okay, are we, there's a difference between okay, I'm going to stop doing the bad, but am I actually actively seeking, the good? And if you sur meira v'aseh tov, if you move away from the bad without doing the good, chances are you're just going to end up doing the bad again, right? You're just going to end up, that seems to me, because you're not replacing the path with anything else. You just kind of wandered off of it for a while, and eventually you're going to end up back where you were, I think. Okay, couple more minutes. Let's see what we can do here. Okay. Ya'azem Adonai v'faltem says God helps them and rescues them. Yifaltem reshanim, and he rescues them from the wicked. Who's the Western? It's interesting. Like he says, who do rescue them from? From the wicked. From the wicked. Rescue. Okay. V'yosheim kichasu bo. He says he delivers them, for in him they take their refuge. This expression is one of the most beautiful expressions in the Tehillim. In the Psalms, this is chasubo, to take refuge in God. That he's the place where we can go. We we say every day in our prayers, kol chosim bo. Everybody, all those who take refuge in Him. It's a beautiful expression, but we says for those who take refuge in Him, He delivers them from the evil ones. So I won't get started too much. I won't get started on the next psalm, but I'll give you a little introduction to it. So I highly recommend that you read it before the next class, which would be next Monday. And it's a very interesting one, because it's the first one that I've seen so far where I can feel that the author is confused. I said at the very beginning, this idea that Rabbi Nachman of Breslov had, that David HaMelech was blessed with the entire variety of human experience, so that he could write about that experience for us, so that we could share that experience. And for me, one of my biggest experiences of being a human being is being confused. I am confused quite a lot. I'm probably the only one. I'm pretty sure I must be the only one, but I'm confused a lot. And even I notice in my prayers. So I try to spend a little bit of time every day just talking to God. And sometimes I'm talking to God. Sometimes I'm talking to myself. Sometimes I'm having imaginary conversations with other people, right? I slip into, well, I would have said, I should have said, I could have said, right? I slip into that. And and it gets very, very confusing. And if you're wondering whether or not David HaMelech experienced that, or whether or not that's part of human experience, well, I think it's in this next psalm. I think the next psalm, he kind of switches between, sometimes he's talking to God, sometimes he's kind of praising God, sometimes he's fetching, he's complaining, like, why aren't you, why aren't you taking care of me? Or like, you see how like messed up I am and I'm sick. And and sometimes he seems hopeful, and then a minute later he sounds like he's ready to give up. And it's a beautifully human experience to read the next psalm. And sometimes he's blaming himself, and sometimes he seems to be blaming God. Sometimes he's blaming his enemies, right? He's blaming other people, he's blaming God, he's blaming himself. And it's a very interesting combination. So maybe give that a read over before, and maybe help me figure it all out next week. So thoughts, objections? Oh, poor Diana, she just arrived. Okay.
Well, I just thank you. I mean, I'm always popping in because I'm always trying to think about it, but kind of I like that you know, well, I had a couple of questions. Okay, maybe I'll try to synthesize it. The stumbling or the wicked, I'm not really familiar. We hear so much about Christianity, and you just say, "Hey, Jesus, you're good," and sorry, but you say, "Jesus, I accept you into my heart, and now I'm redeemed from my wickedness." What is the Jewish thought on that? Because I don't think
Yeah.
it's similar.
Well, in Christian terms, we believe by salvation by works, not by faith. So that your salvation depends on what you do. So you can't, you can't.
Mhm.
Your bill is
You
not
can't say, "Yes, I accept."
right, and also your bill is not paid. And
Yeah,
that's
right, okay.
that's the sort of
I like
sense
that.
your
Can
bill is
I interrupt and just say, because Linda was asking the question about turning away from bad in order to do good, maybe I was raised a Catholic, so this may be how it's meant to be, this misinterpreted. So like saying, okay, Jesus, maybe that's like the turning away from the badness, but you still have to do the good deeds, right? So
right.
it's easy, like, okay, what would Jesus do? Instead of being like, oh, well, I said a thing, so therefore I'm saved. Maybe that's kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, I don't want to get into Christian theology, but the Catholics have kind of a middle ground, right? So St. Thomas Aquinas, who's sort of like the official theologian, I guess, of the Catholic Church, his sense was, look, if you accept Jesus and the Holy Spirit enters into you, then of course you're going to do good. Right? Of course you're going to do good. And if you're not doing good, it means that there was something wrong with the first process, right? That, so so it's inevitable, right? It's inevitable that and if you're not doing good, then that means that, that first part didn't take. So more
And
thoughts?
finally, I just appreciate the double entendre about that how is your piece doing and all the pieces fitting together. I really like that language, so thank you.
Yeah, well, it's hello is such a, hello and a handshake. Basically, you say, hello, I'm not going to kill you. Handshake, you can check me for weapons. It's kind of, it's definitely much less meaningful than wishing somebody peace and asking about their peace.
So I have some thoughts on the psalm, both on being good and bad. Sorry, there will be some noise here. How David knows when he says, "You will never cease to exist if you do this," and there was a third point. Okay, will come to me. So first of all, when he says, "If you do these things, you will live forever," right? And I think, well, that's all of them are my theories. But my theory is that the beginning of the psalm, it begins with the words "Le David," meaning David didn't write this psalm. God gave this psalm to David. So he told him these words, David wrote music maybe to it, but he didn't come up with this word. So he's just, sort of, it's a prophecy in a way. It's like, poets write their poetry in dream. I solved a lot of mathematical problems in dreams and I woke up with these brilliant solutions. So I know they do come to you in your sleep. So that's my theory, that David didn't come with this idea that people will live forever, but it was a God-given idea. Second thing was about be simple and straight. So I think since he speaks about language there a lot, I think what he means is not just straight as a human versus on your all fours, the monkey, but straightforward. So be simple, speak in a language that, like, in a straightforward language, mean what you say and say what you mean. But if you sort of try to embellish your words or portray them as something good when really deep inside you mean something evil, then in the end you will still, you'll dissipate, you'll disappear, and everybody will see you through, and they will realize who you are, and your name will be forsaken forever. But those who are, again, straightforward, not necessarily simple in a sense, stupid or like
No.
primitive.
No.
Primitive. No, I didn't want to say stupid. Primitive.
Right. The word Tom, and we actually came across this before. I mean, the word Tom is a very deep word. I mean, because it means, it's related to it's related to the word also for like completeness, right? It's also related to the word for completeness and perfection, right? So Tom can always be perfect. So so Yaakov is called Ish Tam, right? What does that mean? A simple person or a wholehearted person, or but it's interesting. You have here like two very straightforward, simple things. Sor mevra ve'aseh tov. Okay, turn away from evil and do good. Right? Be tam, right? Be simple and wholehearted, and be yashar, right? Have integrity, be straightforward. Right, and which is all very good advice. Simple, straightforward.
Yeah.
If you're gonna take anything home with you today, those all be good things to take home with you today.
Yeah, so with Yaakov, I think of Yaakov as not just simple again, but he was really beautiful, they're saying, right? And I view it as harmony. So there was harmony in him. And again, Tam in my mind reflects as harmony. It doesn't have to be, again, primitive, or it doesn't have to be complicated. It's just harmonious.
Right.
Harmonious. And in terms of turn away from evil, so speaking about being straightforward, I think, again, the language is very God means what he says, and he says what he means. Like, he doesn't try to embellish the words. So when he says sur mira, turn away, literally turn away. And the way I view it to myself is, there is this very American thing. You look at the cookies and say, oh, they're good. They look good. And there is nothing good in them, in those cookies, right? But there is this, you portray them as good, right? But then in reality, the good thing would be to turn away from those cookies. That would be the good thing. So there could be things that could appear as they're, I don't know, good or righteous or whatever. And all it takes is literally just turn away, and then literally just turn your tuchas to those cookies. And then do the good thing, walk away or whatever. So it's actually very literal. I view it as a very literal thing. I'm Ishtam. Hopefully I see things as they are.
Well, you might want to consider the cookies, because I just noticed that my box of Oreos, which is right over there, I'm sorry, it's right there. My box of Oreos now says that they're made with fair trade cocoa. So Oreos have gone woke. So just
a lot of goodness in those Oreos.
Yeah, so maybe better than you think. So thank you guys very much. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. So Wednesday, I think I'm not gonna be around because I'm gonna be stressing out for the holiday. I know that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be spiritually preparing, but I spiritually prepare by stressing out. And I wish everybody a beautiful. I won't see you before Rosh Hashanah, so please have a beautiful year, a sweet year. Only good things for you and for your families and for your friends and for your friends' friends and your friends' 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 friends. And I love you all. Bye.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
And thank you
Thank
so
you
much for
so
teaching
much.
us, for giving
Manitoba.
us so much wisdom.
Dave.
My pleasure.
Really.